The feral Omega raised orphaned wolves in the mountains. One night, the Alpha King howled back. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Kara was not like any other Omega. She lived alone in the mountains, far from the bustling pack territories. For years, she had been an outcast, not just from society, but from her own pack. Her family had abandoned her, unable to bear the shame of having a daughter who couldn't shift into a wolf. But Kara had never let that stop her. Instead, she found solace in the wild, in the creatures she helped. She had a gift, a rare ability to communicate with wolves and heal those who were wounded. Every year, a new litter of wolves would find their way to her cabin. They came from broken packs, orphaned and abandoned, just like she once had been. And she cared for them, raised them as her own. Each wolf, each howl in the night, was a reminder that she was not truly alone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Kara heard something unusual. A low growl echoed through the trees, followed by a piercing howl that shook the night air. She stood at the edge of the forest, her heart racing. She had never heard a wolf like this before. She followed the sound deep into the woods, where she found a massive black wolf, his fur matted with blood and his body trembling in pain. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Kara hesitated, but then her instincts took over. She knelt beside the creature, her hands trembling as she touched his fur. She could feel the heat of his body, the desperate need for help. She whispered softly, "I can help you." She worked through the night, tending to his wounds, using every bit of knowledge she had learned over the years. As the hours passed, the wolf's breathing steadied, and the tension in his body seemed to melt away. Finally, as the first light of dawn touched the mountaintop, the wolf stirred, his eyes opening to reveal a shocking sight. The creature was not a mere wolf, but a man, a tall, muscular figure with silver-gray eyes that glowed with an otherworldly intensity. Kara gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. Before her stood the Alpha King, his true form now revealed. He had been cursed, trapped in the form of a wolf until someone with the right kind of heart could heal him. And she had done it. The Alpha King rose to his feet, his gaze locking with hers. You saved me," he said, his voice deep and full of emotion. Kara stood frozen, unsure of what to say. But the Alpha King took a step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "And for that, you are mine." His words sent a shiver down her spine. She had healed him, but she had no idea what that would mean for her future. And as the sun rose higher, Kara realized that this night had changed everything. The wild, untamed mountains that had once been her sanctuary would no longer be enough to keep her hidden. Her life would never be the same again. As Kara stood there, looking into the Alpha King's eyes, the realization of what had just occurred hit her all at once. The man in front of her, who moments ago had been a bloodied, helpless wolf, was now standing tall, his form commanding and regal, his presence filling the air around them. His silver-gray eyes gleamed with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that sent a shiver down her spine. She had healed him, yes, but what did that mean for her? What did it mean for her future, for her life in the mountains with the wolves she had raised? She had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could bind her to a king, to the leader of all wolves. But now, standing before her, was the Alpha King himself, and his words echoed in her mind. "And for that, you are mine." His voice was low and full of an unspoken promise. Kara's heart raced, and she took a step back, unsure of how to respond. She had always been alone, the mountains her only company, the wolves her only family. But now, the world was changing in ways she couldn't comprehend. The Alpha King tilted his head slightly, as if waiting for her to speak. I don't understand," Kara whispered, her voice trembling. "I healed you, but I am nothing. I am just an Omega, abandoned by my own pack. I do not belong in your world." The Alpha King's gaze softened, and he took a step closer, his large frame looming over her. "You may be an Omega," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. "But you are more than that. You saved me when no one else could. That alone makes you stronger than most. And you are not nothing. You are everything. His words, though comforting, filled her with a deep sense of uncertainty. What did he mean by that? Why had he come to her, a woman with no status, no power? He had the entire world at his feet. The Alpha King raised a hand, placing it gently on Kara's shoulder, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. I owe you my life, he continued. You healed me when I was lost, and for that, I will protect you. You do not need to fear anything anymore. You are my mate now, bound by the magic of the moon and the bond we share. Kara felt her breath catch in her throat. The bond they shared? Was this truly happening? She had never believed in the stories of fated mates, of a connection so strong that it could not be broken. But as the Alpha King stood before her, the words felt more real than ever. What does that mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Alpha King smiled, a small, genuine smile that softened his once imposing features. It means that I will always stand by your side, he said. It means that you will never be alone again. I will give you everything I have. My pack, my kingdom, my heart. Everything. Kara's mind raced. She had never been a part of a pack, never wanted to be. She had found peace in her solitude, in her quiet life with the wolves. But now, as she stood before this powerful man, this king, she could feel the pull of something greater. It was as if the mountains themselves had called her here, to this moment. She had saved the Alpha King, and now, it seemed, she was meant to be with him. But could she accept this? Could she embrace a life she had never asked for? The Alpha King stepped back, his eyes never leaving hers. You do not have to decide now, he said, his voice gentle. Take your time, but know that I will be here when you are ready. Kara nodded slowly, unsure of what to say or do. The weight of his words settled heavily on her heart, but at the same time, there was something comforting in them. The Alpha King was not demanding, not forcing her into anything. He was offering her a choice, a future, a place in his world. And for the first time in her life, Kara wondered if that was something she could want. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the mountains in a soft, golden glow, the Alpha King turned and walked toward the forest. Come with me, he called over his shoulder, his voice carrying through the stillness of the night. Kara hesitated for a moment, then, with a deep breath, followed him. The journey ahead was unknown, but one thing was certain. Her life would never be the same again. As Kara stood there, looking into the Alpha King's eyes, the realization of what had just occurred hit her all at once. The man in front of her, who moments ago had been a bloodied, helpless wolf, was now standing tall, his form commanding and regal, his presence filling the air around them. His silver-gray eyes gleamed with a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, something that sent a shiver down her spine. She had healed him, yes, but what did that mean for her? What did it mean for her future, for her life in the mountains with the wolves she had raised? She had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could bind her to a king, to the leader of all wolves. But now, standing before her, was the Alpha King himself, and his words echoed in her mind. And for that, you are mine. His voice was low and full of an unspoken promise. Kara's heart raced, and she took a step back, unsure of how to respond. She had always been alone, the mountains her only company, the wolves her only family. But now, the world was changing in ways she couldn't comprehend. The Alpha King tilted his head slightly, as if waiting for her to speak. I don't understand, Kara whispered, her voice trembling. I healed you, but I am nothing. I am just an Omega, abandoned by my own pack. I do not belong in your world. The Alpha King's gaze softened, and he took a step closer, his large frame looming over her. You may be an Omega, he said, his voice gentle yet firm. But you are more than that. You saved me when no one else could. That alone makes you stronger than most. And you are not nothing. You are everything. His words, though comforting, filled her with a deep sense of uncertainty. What did he mean by that? Why had he come to her, a woman with no status, no power? He had the entire world at his feet. The Alpha King raised a hand, placing it gently on Kara's shoulder, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. I owe you my life, he continued. You healed me when I was lost, and for that, I will protect you. You do not need to fear anything anymore. You are my mate now, bound by the magic of the moon and the bond we share. Kara felt her breath catch in her throat. The bond they shared? Was this truly happening? She had never believed in the stories of fated mates, of a connection so strong that it could not be broken. But as the Alpha King stood before her, the words felt more real than ever. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Alpha King smiled, a small, genuine smile that softened his once imposing features. "It means that I will always stand by your side," he said. "It means that you will never be alone again. I will give you everything I have. My pack, my kingdom, my heart. Everything." Kara's mind raced. She had never been a part of a pack, never wanted to be. She had found peace in her solitude, in her quiet life with the wolves. But now, as she stood before this powerful man, this king, she could feel the pull of something greater. It was as if the mountains themselves had called her here, to this moment. She had saved the Alpha King, and now, it seemed, she was meant to be with him. But could she accept this? Could she embrace a life she had never asked for? The Alpha King stepped back, his eyes never leaving hers. "You do not have to decide now," he said, his voice gentle. "Take your time, but know that I will be here when you are ready." Kara nodded slowly, unsure of what to say or do. The weight of his words settled heavily on her heart, but at the same time, there was something comforting in them. The Alpha King was not demanding, not forcing her into anything. He was offering her a choice, a future, a place in his world. And for the first time in her life, Kara wondered if that was something she could want. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the mountains in a soft, golden glow, the Alpha King turned and walked toward the forest. "Come with me," he called over his shoulder, his voice carrying through the stillness of the night. Kara hesitated for a moment, then, with a deep breath, followed him. The journey ahead was unknown, but one thing was certain. Her life would never be the same again. As the night descended, Kara followed the Alpha King, Eirik, through the dense forest. The moon cast a pale light, and the sounds of the night creatures echoed around them. It was strange to walk beside him now that she knew the truth. He was no ordinary wolf, but the Alpha King, the man she had healed, the one whose pain she had felt so deeply, was a ruler with powers beyond her comprehension. Despite the fear that gripped her heart, Kara felt an undeniable pull toward him. She had never imagined that the simple act of saving a wounded wolf could lead her to a path like this. Eirik glanced at her, his silver-gray eyes glowing in the moonlight. "You saved me," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of gratitude and something deeper. Kara nodded, unsure of what to say. She had saved him, but now she was bound to him in ways she couldn't fully understand. "You didn't just save my life," Eirik continued. "You saved my soul. The curse that bound me was broken by your touch." Kara stopped walking for a moment, looking up at him. "Curse?" she asked, her voice trembling. Eirik's expression darkened. "Yes, I was cursed to live as a wolf, unable to shift back into my true form until someone with a pure heart could heal me. And that someone was you." Kara felt a chill run down her spine. She had healed him, but what did that mean for her? What was her role in this new world of power and danger? "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. "I'm just an Omega. I don't have power or status." Eirik reached out and gently took her hand, his touch sending warmth through her skin. "You are more than just an Omega," he said softly. "You are my mate, and I will never let you go." His words sent a surge of warmth through Kara's chest. She had never known such tenderness, never felt so protected. But the reality of their situation was impossible to ignore. "I can't be your mate," she protested, pulling her hand away. "I'm nothing." Eirik's eyes softened, and he stepped closer to her. "You're wrong," he said, his voice steady. "You are everything, and I will prove it to you." Kara looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability behind the strength. He was a king, powerful and fierce, but he was also a man who had been trapped in a curse for years. And now, she was the one who had freed him. She didn't understand what was happening between them, but there was no denying the connection that had formed. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eirik took a deep breath. "I want you to come with me," he said. "I want you to be by my side, not just as my mate, but as my queen. Together, we can rebuild my kingdom. Together, we can create a future." Kara hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. Could she really step into this world with him? Could she leave behind the life she had known? But as she looked at him, standing before her with such certainty, she knew that her life would never be the same. The night had changed everything. "I don't know how to be your queen," she said quietly. "I don't know how to be anything but the Omega I've always been." Eirik smiled, a small but reassuring smile. "Then we will learn together," he said. "We'll take it one step at a time. But I promise you this, you are not alone anymore. You have me." Kara felt a lump rise in her throat. She had always been alone, always had to rely on herself. But now, for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to fight it. Maybe, just maybe, there was a place for her beside him, a place where she could belong. The Alpha King reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Will you come with me, Kara?" he asked, his voice full of hope. Kara stared into his eyes, feeling the pull of fate, the bond that had formed between them. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know what the future would hold. But in this moment, with him, she felt something she had never felt before, a sense of belonging. "Yes," she whispered, "I will come with you." And as they stood there, under the light of the moon, the world seemed to shift around them, as if acknowledging the beginning of something new, something that was meant to be. Together, they walked into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And for the first time in her life, Kara felt that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As Kara walked beside Eirik through the dense forest, the weight of his words lingered in the air like the crisp scent of the night. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting soft beams on their path, but Kara felt an unsettling heaviness in her heart. She had accepted his offer, the Alpha King's promise to make her his queen, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she really be what he believed her to be? Could she rise to be the queen of a kingdom that was filled with power and expectations she had never known? The sound of Eirik's footsteps beside hers broke through her thoughts, and she glanced at him. His profile was set, his expression unreadable, but there was a quiet strength in him that made her wonder how many burdens he had carried alone. Eirik turned his head slightly, catching her gaze. "You are not just my mate, Kara," he said, his voice deep and steady. "You are my equal, and I will prove to you that you belong beside me." Kara's heart skipped a beat. She had never felt like an equal to anyone, always the outcast, always the one pushed to the fringes. To hear him say such words, so full of certainty, made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. They reached the edge of the forest, where the land opened up to reveal a wide, flowing river that glittered under the moon's glow. Eirik stopped and turned to face her, his eyes soft but intense. "This is where it begins," he said. Kara raised an eyebrow, confusion flickering in her chest. "What do you mean?" she asked. Eirik smiled, his expression warm. "The world is not always kind to us, Kara. But here, with me, you will learn what it means to stand tall, to be proud of who you are. Together, we will build a future." Kara swallowed, her throat tight. She had no idea how to respond. Could she really stand by him? Could she truly be his equal in this world of wolves and power? "You don't have to have all the answers now," Eirik continued, his voice gentle but firm. "But trust me when I say that you are stronger than you know. I see it in you, even if you don't see it yet." Kara looked away, her gaze drifting to the river's edge. She could feel the weight of the decision she had made, but at the same time, a strange sense of peace settled over her. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. "I don't know what to do with all this," Kara whispered, more to herself than to him. "I've never been more unsure of anything in my life." Eirik reached out and gently touched her shoulder, grounding her with his presence. "Then let me help you," he said softly. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight. But together, we can face whatever comes. Together, we will face the future, and we will make it our own." Kara closed her eyes for a moment, letting his words sink in. She had lived her entire life believing she was nothing, believing she was too weak, too broken to be anything more than what she had always been. But now, standing here with Eirik, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a future for her beyond the loneliness of the mountains. She took a deep breath, her mind racing. What did it mean to be his equal? What did it mean to be by his side as a queen? The questions swirled in her head, but one thing was certain. She wasn't alone anymore. As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, Kara turned to face Eirik, determination flashing in her eyes. I'll try, she said, her voice steady for the first time. I'll try to be what you see in me. Eirik smiled, his expression proud. That's all I ask, he said. Together, we will create a kingdom that stands strong, built on trust, respect, and the bond we share. You are not just an Omega, Kara. You are my queen. The weight of his words settled deep in her chest, but this time, it didn't feel heavy. For the first time, it felt like a promise, one that she was ready to embrace. With a deep breath, Kara stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held for them. And as they walked toward the rising sun, the world seemed to open up before her, full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. As Kara walked beside Eirik, the Alpha King, their path took them deeper into the heart of his kingdom. The land around them was vast and untamed, much like the man who walked beside her. The towering trees and the wide open plain seemed to stretch endlessly, mirroring the uncertainty that twisted in her chest. Every step they took together felt like a new chapter in her life, one she had never imagined but now felt destined to live. The weight of her decision to stand by him felt both exhilarating and terrifying, but there was something in Eirik's unwavering confidence that gave her the strength to continue. He had promised her a future, one built on trust, respect, and equality, and Kara had made the choice to believe him. They reached a clearing in the forest, where a large stone structure stood, a symbol of the kingdom's strength and resilience. The palace was unlike anything Kara had ever seen. It was both ancient and modern, a towering fortress that blended seamlessly with the natural world around it. Eirik turned to her, his eyes softening as he saw the awe in her expression. "This is where we'll begin," he said quietly, his voice full of emotion. Kara looked up at him, unsure of how to respond. She had never known a life like this, never imagined that she could be a part of something so grand. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do here," she admitted, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Eirik smiled, the warmth in his eyes calming her. "You're not here to fit into a mold, Kara. You're here to help create something new, something better. You are not just my mate. You are my equal, and you will help me rule this kingdom with compassion and strength." Kara swallowed, the weight of his words sinking in. The pressure of what lay ahead threatened to overwhelm her, but Eirik's presence steadied her. He was right. She was more than just the Omega who had healed him. She was someone capable of making a difference. "I'm not sure I can live up to what you expect of me," Kara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Eirik took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. "You don't need to live up to expectations, Kara," he said softly. "You just need to be yourself. That is more than enough." His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing the doubt and fear that had settled there. She didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to have all the answers. She just needed to stand beside him and trust in the bond they shared. Kara nodded slowly, a sense of resolve building within her. She wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in her life, she had someone who believed in her, who saw her for who she truly was, and not for the flaws others had labeled her with. "I'll try," she said quietly, her voice steady with newfound determination. Eirik smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling with warmth. "That's all I ask," he replied. Together, they walked toward the palace, the gates opening before them as if welcoming them into a new world, a world where Kara could be herself, where she could forge her own path. As they entered the grand halls of the palace, Kara couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. She had always believed that she was destined to live in the shadows, to be nothing more than a healer and a protector of wolves. But now, standing beside Eirik, she realized that destiny was not something set in stone. It was something that could be shaped, molded, and forged through courage and choice. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she was ready to face it head-on. The life she had dreamed of, the life where she could be more than just an Omega, was beginning to unfold before her. And as the doors to the throne room opened, Kara felt a new sense of purpose fill her. She was no longer the broken Omega from the mountains. She was the queen in the making, the mate of the Alpha King, and together, they would create a legacy that would change the kingdom forever. As Kara stood beside Eirik in the grand throne room, her heart pounded in her chest. The sheer magnificence of the palace around her was overwhelming. Tall marble columns, golden tapestries that shimmered in the light, and intricate carvings that depicted the history of the kingdom. But it wasn't the palace that made her feel so small. It was the weight of what was about to happen. Eirik, the Alpha King, stood beside her, his presence commanding and steady, and for the first time, Kara truly felt the enormity of the life she had chosen. She was no longer just a healer in the mountains, a quiet soul who had lived in the shadows of the wolves. She was now standing in the heart of a kingdom, beside a man who had already claimed her as his queen. The thought sent a surge of both fear and exhilaration through her. Eirik's gaze softened as he looked at her, sensing the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low and reassuring. Kara swallowed, trying to steady her breath. She wasn't sure if she was ready, but what choice did she have? She had come this far, and she had made the choice to stand beside him, to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to embrace the future he was offering her. "I'm ready," she said, her voice more confident than she felt. Eirik smiled, the warmth in his eyes spreading to her chest, easing the tension that had built up inside her. "You don't have to be perfect, Kara," he said gently. "You just have to be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted from you." Kara nodded, her heart swelling at his words. She had always believed that she wasn't enough, that she could never be what the world expected of her. But Eirik didn't want perfection. He wanted her just as she was. And for the first time in her life, that felt like enough. As they walked toward the center of the throne room, Kara couldn't help but notice the hushed whispers of the courtiers around them. They had never seen the Alpha King bring an Omega into the heart of his kingdom like this, especially not one as ordinary as Kara. The expectations were heavy, but she refused to shrink under their gaze. She was no longer the broken, discarded Omega. She was the Alpha King's mate, and she would stand tall. The throne room doors swung open, and a sense of awe swept through the air. Eirik led Kara forward, his hand on her back, guiding her with a steady and confident grip. As they reached the center of the room, the courtiers fell silent, their eyes trained on the pair. Kara felt the weight of their scrutiny, but she stood firm. Eirik turned to face her, his eyes locking with hers. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "Not just for me, but for all of us." Kara felt a swell of emotion rise in her chest as Eirik's words sank in. This was the moment when everything would change. For so long, she had lived in the shadows, never daring to believe in a future like this. But now, as she stood before the court, beside the Alpha King, she realized that her future was not defined by the past. It was defined by the choices she made now. "I stand before you all," Eirik continued, "with Kara, my mate, my queen. Together, we will rebuild this kingdom, not just through strength, but through compassion, understanding, and unity. I choose her, and she will stand with me as an equal." The room was still, the silence hanging heavy in the air. Kara could feel the weight of the moment, the turning of history, but she also felt something else, something stronger than fear or uncertainty. It was a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. She was no longer just an outsider. She was part of something bigger, something that was meant to be. As Eirik took her hand, a wave of warmth washed over her. She was not alone. She would never be alone again. The courtiers slowly began to applaud, and the sound filled the room, echoing through the high ceilings. Kara's heart raced as she looked at Eirik, her mate, her king, and for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. As the applause died down, Eirik turned to her, his eyes filled with pride and affection. "We have much to do," he said, his voice soft but full of promise. Kara nodded, her heart full of determination. She wasn't sure what the future would hold, but with Eirik by her side, she was ready to face it. Together, they would build a kingdom that would stand the test of time, not just through power, but through the bond they shared. And for Kara, that was all she needed. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. She was ready to take the next step, ready to face whatever challenges came their way. And with Eirik by her side, she knew that they could overcome anything. As Kara stood at the edge of the grand balcony, looking out over the sprawling kingdom below, she couldn't help but feel the weight of everything that had changed in such a short time. The distant mountains, once a place of solitude and escape, now felt like a memory, a life she had left behind. The kingdom that stretched out before her was vast, its lands filled with both untapped potential and a history of struggle. Eirik's words echoed in her mind. This was their future, together, and she was no longer just an outsider. She was his queen, his equal. But what did that really mean? What did it take to be the queen of a kingdom that was still finding its footing? Kara's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching from behind. She turned to find Eirik standing in the doorway, his eyes filled with warmth, but also with a quiet intensity. "I knew you would be here," he said softly, his voice carrying across the cool evening air. Kara smiled, feeling the familiar pull of his presence. "I needed to think," she replied, turning back toward the view. "There's so much ahead of us, so much I'm not sure I can handle." Eirik stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to handle it alone," he said. "We'll face it together, every step of the way. You're not just my queen in title, Kara. You are the heart of this kingdom, and that will never change." His words brought a rush of warmth to Kara's chest. She had never known such certainty, such unconditional support. It was a feeling she was still learning to trust. She turned to face him, searching his gaze. "What if I'm not enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if I can't be what this kingdom needs?" Eirik smiled, a reassuring smile that seemed to ease the lingering doubts in her mind. "You already are," he said simply. "You've already proven it. Your kindness, your strength, your heart, they are everything this kingdom needs. We will build this together, brick by brick. And I'll be with you every step of the way." Kara felt a tear slip down her cheek, the weight of everything she had endured and everything she was about to face crashing over her. But with Eirik by her side, she felt like she could finally breathe. She was no longer alone, no longer the broken Omega she had once been. She was someone who mattered, someone whose actions could shape the future. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "for believing in me." Eirik reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. "You don't need to thank me, Kara," he said softly. "I've always believed in you. You just needed to believe in yourself." He leaned in, brushing his lips gently against her forehead. "Together, we will make this kingdom the place we both know it can be." Kara closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his words settle deep in her heart. For so long, she had feared that she was not enough, that she could never live up to the expectations of others. But now, with Eirik's unwavering faith in her, she felt something shift inside her. She was more than what she had always believed. She was strong, capable, and ready to embrace the future. As they stood there, the world around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting for them to take the next step. Kara knew that there would be challenges ahead, that the path they were walking wouldn't always be easy. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, by Eirik's side, as his queen, his mate, and his equal. And together, they would create a future that was their own, a future full of hope, love, and the promise of a kingdom reborn. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the land, Kara took Eirik's hand, feeling the strength of his grip, the connection between them. "Let's do this," she said, her voice steady with newfound confidence. Eirik smiled, his eyes filled with pride. Together, he agreed. And with that, they turned toward the horizon, ready to face whatever the future held, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. As the days passed, Kara and Eirik settled into a routine that felt both foreign and familiar. Kara, once the quiet healer of the mountains, now found herself learning the ways of the kingdom. The courtiers, the nobles, the powerful leaders from distant lands, all of them looked to her now as the Alpha King's queen. At first, it had felt overwhelming, the weight of every decision, every gaze upon her. But with each passing day, she grew stronger, more confident in her place at Eirik's side. He had kept his promise. He had never once let her feel alone, always guiding her with patience, always reminding her that they were in this together. They had faced the challenges of uniting the kingdom, of rebuilding after years of turmoil, but nothing could have prepared Kara for the moment that would change everything. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of red and gold, Eirik called her to the balcony. His eyes, as always, held a warmth that melted the fears and doubts she still occasionally carried. Kara stepped out to join him, her heart fluttering in her chest. He stood with his back to her, looking out over the kingdom they were building together. "Kara," he began, his voice full of quiet reverence. "When I first met you, I was lost. I had spent years trapped in a curse, thinking that I could never be whole again. But you healed me, in ways that I never thought possible. Kara walked up beside him, her hand gently resting on his arm. I didn't do anything special, Eirik, she whispered, her voice filled with tenderness. I just saw you for who you are, not for what the world had made you believe you were. Eirik turned to face her, his eyes searching hers as if looking for something he had only just begun to understand. That's the truth of it, isn't it? He said softly. You didn't just heal my body, you healed my soul. You reminded me that I didn't have to carry the weight of the world alone. Kara's heart swelled with love for him, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing day. She had always believed she was destined to be a healer, a protector of those who could not protect themselves. But with Eirik, she had become so much more. She was his queen, his equal, and together they had built a future that neither of them could have imagined. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, Eirik reached out, taking her hand in his. I have something to ask you, he said, his voice low and serious. Kara's heart skipped a beat, wondering what he was about to say. Anything, she replied, her voice steady. What is it? Eirik smiled, his eyes softening. Kara, I've asked you to stand by my side as my queen. But now, I ask you to stand beside me, not just as my queen, but as my mate, forever. Kara's breath caught in her throat as he dropped to one knee before her, his gaze never leaving hers. Will you marry me, Kara? Will you be with me for all the days of our lives? The world seemed to hold its breath as Kara stared at Eirik, her heart overflowing with emotion. The man who had once been a king in name alone, who had been trapped by a curse, had now become the ruler of a kingdom built on love, trust, and partnership. And she had been at his side every step of the way. Kara's voice was barely a whisper as she replied, Yes. I will marry you, Eirik. I will be with you forever. Eirik stood, pulling her into his arms, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. It was just the two of them, standing in the twilight, surrounded by the promise of a future they would build together. The Alpha King had found his queen, and the healer had found her true place in the world. Together, they were unstoppable. They had faced every challenge, every obstacle, and now, nothing could stand in their way. As the stars began to twinkle above them, Kara realized that she had finally found the family she had always longed for, the love she had never dared to dream of. And in Eirik's arms, she knew that their future was brighter than any star in the night sky. In this captivating werewolf romance, the story follows Kara, a young Omega who has spent her life in the shadows of the werewolf kingdom. After being abandoned by her pack, she finds herself caught in a journey of self-discovery and love, after healing a mysterious wounded wolf. Little does she know, the wolf is none other than Eirik, the Alpha King, cursed and bound to the form of a wolf until someone pure of heart could heal him. As their bond deepens, Kara discovers her true place at Eirik's side, not just as his mate, but as his queen. Together, they must navigate the complexities of love, power, and the looming challenges that come with uniting a fractured kingdom. This werewolf story is filled with passion, danger, and a deep connection between Kara and Eirik as they face trials that test their strength and resolve. The tale brings a powerful message about destiny, love, and the transformation of both characters, especially Kara, who rises from being a rejected Omega to becoming the powerful queen of the werewolf kingdom. As Kara and Eirik embrace their fated roles, they prove that even in a world where power is everything, love and equality can change the future. This heart-pounding werewolf romance is a must-read for anyone who loves stories of magic, werewolves, and epic love that transcends all odds.